So as the title suggests, we are trying to show you how to build automated agents using optimized models that are available on the Microsoft Foundry that's optimized for the Snapdragon PCs. Thank you. So today, quite a lot of the enterprise workflows have chat applications with a model that is running on the cloud, and you are essentially sending a prompt, and that prompt fetches an answer, and it provides you with what you're looking for. But what if that workflow that you're trying to build is essentially repetitive, is pretty complex, it could be multi-step, and also you expect it to run based on a schedule. You also have in enterprise settings a security component which might necessitate running your model locally. So you could have all of these different requirements, and what if also without having to prompt, you could run automated workflows that are schedule driven. What we are going to show you today is with LLMware's Model HQ and on Snapdragon PCs with models optimized for the Snapdragon PCs from the Microsoft Foundry through Windows ML API, you can essentially do that. So what we expect all of you to walk away learning are 4 things. First, you build a multi-step AI workflow that are powered by small language models. We have the capability to build these automated workflows for different kind of enterprise scenarios for different industries. However, we will showcase one example using a Jira workflow today. You can make that workflow automated on the Snapdragon PC. You can get optimized performance on the NPU by running the model locally on the NPU, and you also implement a scheduled run of your automated agents. So those are the 4 things that we hope at a minimum that you will walk away today from. So as an enterprise workflow, we are going to focus today on Jira, but we also understand that different types of enterprise software will need to be hooked in to perform these agentic workflows, right? And if we were to focus on this Jira implementation today, in any large enterprise, you have multiple Jira databases, right? Product managers could be using it for storing different user stories. You have different feature requests. You have bug requests. So there are a plethora of different types of databases that have data sitting in different silos. But what if you were to glean the relevant data and form the kind of knowledge base that you need to run the kind of prompts or the kind of requests locally on the PC? In just a few simple steps, using LLMware's Model HQ, which is a no-code drag-and-drop design interface, we will show you how to build such agentic workflows. So essentially, we will use a CSV file with structured data, thousands of rows of data, and show you how we can gather the relevant information and just extract the most important summary that you might need. So since this is a demo session, we really do not want to have too many slides. However, this is the last slide. What it essentially shows is the LLMware Model HQ, which is the application at the very middle, in the middle. It has got a very no-code integration through the software to Microsoft Foundry Local and to other model repositories. On the back end, you can integrate Windows ML API, or you could use the Onyx Runtime APIs. But underneath, it's using the Qualcomm execution providers to give you the best performance by running the model locally on the NPU. So before we dive into a live demo session, we want to show you a quick 2-minute video. Don't worry, the video does not have any audio on it, so we understand it's a noisy environment. What we want to showcase is just a glimpse of what the live session is going to cover. And once the 2-minute video is done, we'll dive right into a live demo session. With that, Darren can take it away. It's not playing. Excuse me. Can we get some help with the audio? Yeah. We're not able to toggle applications on screen.
This is the video.
Do you have your PowerPoint, your slideshow open as well at the same time?
Oh, did you close the PowerPoint?
Oh.
Yeah, so that's on. You should show up. You guys test this before? Or?
Yeah, we did yesterday. Mhm.
Yeah, yesterday.
Worked out fine?
No problems. They're now showing. At least down here it is. Okay, you want to just reintroduce it?
Yeah,
And then go?
you go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So what you're seeing on the screen is just a quick overview of what we're going to show live. So you're walking through the steps. All of this is built with no code. We're actually going to be integrating 3 different components. We're integrating our Jira API, configured and integrated into our application. We're integrating Windows Local Foundry, and we're integrating an email client, because at the end of the process, we're actually going to send an email. Once we've gone through that, we're actually going to select an NPU model from Foundry Local that's been optimized for performance on the Snapdragon X2. So it's going to run really, really fast, and you'll see that in action. We then compose our process. Our process can be composed entirely with no code, drag and drop components to define every step in delivering this service, starting with pulling information from our Jira API, running a few basic filters that we wanted in this use case, of basically figuring out what are some of the most important, open, and critical issues that had certain characteristics, and then we go ahead and we run a summarization of all of that activity. Here's the agent actually running, and we're going to show this running live in just a minute. But then most importantly, what we get is our output. Instead of hundreds and hundreds of rows of Jira, we get just the output that we were looking for, now with an AI summary for each row, giving us a distillation of what that individual issue was. And then at the end, we actually email it to us. Now the power of this is that you could put it on a scheduling API. Once you've built it entirely with no code, schedule it every single day, so that when you or your team come in the morning, what you get immediately in your inbox, safely, securely, and without any token charges, is a distillation of the most critical Jira issues and a summarization of it, all in a common spreadsheet that you can all work from. Hopefully that gives you a sense of an overview of the process. This video was actually created kind of in real time. It took about 15 minutes to do end to end, and then we just compressed it down for the purpose of showing it. Hopefully that sets the context. Now what we'd actually like to do is really amplify some of these elements live, so you can actually see the code working. But then most importantly, what we want to do is show you how you can actually leverage and extend it beyond that. How do you start to share these agents once you've built them? How do you start to extend them and call them programmatically? Again, we're going to walk through a couple of those in the live part of the demo. All right, so what you see, this actually is Model HQ. This is just a Windows application. It is running entirely locally on the device. The only Wi-Fi dependency that we have is we are going to pull from Jira. Since we've been here at the conference, we've had pretty good success, but that is the only place that the demo gods may strike us here, is if we can't pull that information. We do have a fully air-gapped version of this, which we can pivot over to show you, but let's take our chances, all right? So we're going to show you running this scenario live, pulling the information from Jira, in real time. That's going to take the longest part. And then we're going to run through all the steps that you just saw in the video. So here is the process that you just saw in the video. It was as easy as dragging and dropping elements onto a palette. Most of you have probably worked with some type of drag and drop process automator, maybe with a data transformation process, maybe in conjunction with agents. Very, very simple, very intuitive, and can even be used by completely non-technical people to really start automating complex workflows. What we're going to do in this case, you can see, just give you a sense of the UI. Again, all these elements are simply dropped onto the palette. And then what we wanted to do is to run it. And one of the things that we wanted to bring to life was the power of the Snapdragon NPU. This really is the secret sauce of running AI locally, is the accelerators that are increasingly built into the kit that every single person in this room is carrying around. You don't have to send everything up to the cloud. You don't have to incur token charges, privacy risk, because you have now inside your laptop this really powerful accelerator. So the demo gods looks like they were nice to us today. So we actually were able to pull the information from the API. That's what actually ran in real time. And it looks like we're already done. So you can see how fast actually it was able to run through all of those inferences, and all of it powered by that NPU that you can see running up in the task manager. All right. The next thing that I wanted to show you is first, all the outputs that you get are actually in the formats that you would want to be able to consume. They're CSV files, they're Excel workbooks, they're PowerPoints. So you're using the AI to drive some real productivity by creating then the custom outputs already in the form that can then be consumed, and as you saw in this case, actually emailed out to somebody, shared over Teams, shared over Slack. But what I really wanted to get to bring this to life, since this is a developer conference, is I wanted to talk about how you can take a no-code asset like that and now leverage it programmatically. Because one of the most common things is we all can get stuck in develop mode, prototype mode. You see this at a conference and you're like, well, that's pretty cool. I'll go demo this for my boss. But then the real challenge is, well, how do you actually move this into production? How do you share this with somebody? How do you start integrating it into some kind of operational workflow? How do you integrate it into a custom application? And so what we're going to do is, in addition to being a UI-based app, all of the functionality can be exposed as a back-end Windows service. So by just flipping that switch, all the functionality of the product now is available over API. It's running on localhost. You could expose it over an external port. So let's say you actually wanted to take a laptop and turn it into a mini server. You actually could do that. But in this case, all we're going to be doing is we're going to be exposing it over localhost, so nothing is actually leaving the machine. But once we do that, that agent that we just created with no code can now be accessed and extended programmatically. So we have an SDK. And I've just flipped over, so hopefully everybody feels more comfortable now. Now we're looking at some code. We're doing some real work. But the power is that you can build that agent with no code. You can have a business domain expert, an SME, someone that does reporting, operations, transformation. They can go build that agent, and then that agent is exposed and available programmatically. So for anyone that's ever used, let's say, an OpenAI SDK, or any type of high-level sort of model-based API, some level you instantiate a client object. The client object carries your credentials, and then within that client object, you invoke various methods. So in this case, what we're going to do with our client is we have two APIs that we're actually going to use. The first one is just call agent. In effect, that agent that we just built is all now being exposed over an endpoint. We can call that agent by name. So with a simple command of client call agent, in this case there aren't any inputs because they're all coming from the API, but in another case you could be passing inputs inside API as well. When we do run agent, that actually launches the agent asynchronously on the device. You're given a receipt, an execution ID. You can come back about a minute later with that execution ID, and then you can get all of the agent outputs. So again, as simple as run the agent and then get the agent outputs. So, hopefully that's pretty clear. Let's go ahead and let's quickly run this. All right, now all that's happened is that request has actually been initiated within the application. That process has started to run asynchronously in the background. So you don't have to have the app open, you don't have to have any of that. It could just be running quietly in the background. You could be running this API on a schedule, so every morning or every night, as long as that Windows service is running, even if somebody closes the laptop and all of that, you could be running these kinds of agent processes. The agent is now running. In fact, if we see, we see this NPU, unless my time is a little bit off and the agent process is already run. But we'll see an email being sent at the end of the process. Assuming about the and Wi-Fi is all working, we will get that email then at the end of the process. And then what we can do is we can go back and we can pick up our output. So once we run this command, this will actually give us then a zip folder that has all those files that we were looking at when we ran the process interactively. And so this becomes how easy you can start taking high-level objects, like an agent, like custom data sources and information that's within that Jira repository, and start exposing and integrating this into another application. Now this same thing, if you wanted to put it on a server, we have a server component. So once you create that agent and it's working, that agent can then be exposed as an endpoint on that server. And so you can go from developing this, starting to share it point to point with a few colleagues who are also all running it locally, to then being able to push this up to a server and running the whole thing then in a much more scalable way. So last thing I wanted to show is just that. Is, let's say we've just created this, and we've created it over the course of a 20, 25-minute session. How do we share it? So sharing it is as easy as that. All of the agent, everything that we just looked at, this gets distilled down to hundreds of lines of JSON configuration code, combined with the custom data assets that were part of that agent, including the custom services that we created in terms of the Jira integration. No credentials are ever shared or passed, but that agent now can be wrapped up in a zip file, and it's as easy to share as a PowerPoint file or an Excel spreadsheet, to send to a colleague over email, post it in a SharePoint site, and say, hey, I just built this agent, go check it out, you might have some fun running with it. And it becomes that easy then to start sharing and collaborating, all entirely with no code, and all entirely powered by Snapdragon X2 NPU. So let me pause here. We actually have about 4 minutes left, but let me just pause here and see if there are any questions. Yes, sir. It's a great question. So the question is, Okay, small models are good, but there are some things that you're going to want to use larger models for. Can you do that? So the first thing is that we actually support about 200 models in our model catalog, including the ability to use cloud-based models. So let's say you developed some process, and perhaps there's some very complex reasoning that you want to do, or analytics, and you're like, no, I need to be able to use Gemini to do this. There's no problem. You would simply add as a node in your process a call out to that model. So an example might be some really complex multimodal or visual input that you want to do some complex transformation to. You can now take a process and say, for the other 10 steps, where I'm extracting information, where I'm summarizing, where it's text-based, I can do all that locally. And then for that one critical step, I can go punch out to that model and bring all the information back. So you have the ability to kind of combine sort of that best of both worlds. Any other questions? You want to see some more code? Should we do another example? No? Any other questions? Yes?
Now, Snapdragon doesn't work well on other CPUs as well, or what's the big advantage of using a Snapdragon processor?
So, question is, what is the advantage of using a Snapdragon processor? I'm going to give first an example to an ISV, and then I'll actually let the Qualcomm team answer as well. It's fast, really, really fast. And so the NPU, fully integrated onto your device, the latest generation of the X2 Snapdragon has 80 TOPS, which means it's a lot of capability to start running more models and bigger models faster. So ultimately, when it comes to any discussion about a processor with models, it's just going to be the speed and the size of the model that it starts to unlock. And this is really a state-of-the-art platform to enable you to use kind of the biggest and best models in the fastest possible way. And I didn't mean to steal the message.
Oh, no, not at all. You covered it exceptionally well. Thank you. And if you want to see any other use cases, we are at the Qualcomm booth. So you can, you all come from different industries, right? We would like to show you additional examples of what's possible for your industry to build agentic use cases at the booth.
Yeah.
We could only cover one use case here. We apologize for that.
Yeah, you can see we have 15 other scenarios. Unlike some demos, this actually is a commercial product. So you can go, you can check out the product, come to the Qualcomm booth, you'll build your first agent using this technique in just a minute. Again, regardless of your technical depth, we want to be able to enable people that can't program at all to do some really powerful, repeatable workflows. But then to the most sophisticated programmer, the ability to combine some of those assets and start extending and leveraging them programmatically.
Yeah, and we also showed one model for the entire use case, right? There is also a possibility where you can mix and match different models for different parts of your use case. So we can show you how to do that at the booth.
Yeah. I guess my closing message is look into local AI. I know there's a lot of messages being shared over the next 2 days. Look into local AI. Cost, privacy, and the kinds of capabilities that you're finding now in next generation AI PCs unlock a lot of capabilities. What we as an ISV, we're committed to pushing on that innovation from the hardware level and starting to bring really, really innovative solutions to enable you to do just about anything you're doing with a cloud-based model to increasingly be able to do all of that locally without having to worry about token charges, without having to be worrying about privacy concerns. I think that's it. We have 10 seconds left, so timed it okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.